The moment you decide who you are, your life begins to reorganize around that decision. Not slowly, not someday, immediately. Because life does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you consistently embody. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you are already broadcasting an identity. The question is whether that identity is aligned with where you want to go or quietly keeping you where you are. This is not about money. Money is only one visible result. This is about energy, direction, and self-respect. This is about the internal signal you carry when you walk into a room, make a decision, speak to yourself in silence, or choose what to tolerate. The world does not respond to doubt. It responds to certainty, not loud certainty, not arrogant certainty, but calm, grounded certainty, the kind that comes from knowing who you are, even when nothing is proving it yet. Most people spend their lives trying to change the outside first. Better timing, better luck, better opportunities, better connections. They wait for permission. They wait for signs. They wait for proof that they matter before they move. And while they wait, life keeps moving without them. Because the truth is uncomfortable, but simple. Results do not create identity. Identity creates results. When your thoughts are scattered, your actions hesitate. When your words are weak, your standards collapse. When your behavior is inconsistent, your confidence erodes. Over time, this creates an internal friction, a quiet tension between who you feel you could be and how you actually live. That tension drains energy, and a drained system cannot build wealth, clarity, or momentum. Rich energy is not something you fake. It is something you stabilize. It is the state of internal alignment, where your thoughts, words, and actions move in the same direction. When that alignment exists, your nervous system calms, your decisions sharpen, and your presence becomes steady. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Life responds to it. Not because of luck, but because coherence is powerful. From a scientific perspective, repetition wires the brain. What you think repeatedly becomes your default lens. What you practice becomes your baseline behavior. Over time, this forms identity. From an energetic perspective, consistency strengthens signal. A clear signal travels further than scattered effort. And from a philosophical perspective, a life gains weight when actions match values. All three point to the same truth. You do not rise by hoping. You rise by becoming. This audiobook is not here to hype you up. Motivation fades. This is here to recalibrate you. To replace reaction with leadership. To move you out of survival mode and into intentional living. Not through fantasy, but through discipline. Not through shortcuts, but through standards. Not through waiting, but through decision. You will hear ideas you already know. That is intentional. Transformation does not come from new information. It comes from repeated alignment. From hearing the same truth until you stop negotiating with it. Until your behavior finally catches up to your awareness. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lacking. But you may be misaligned. And misalignment is costly. It shows up as procrastination, distraction, self-doubt, and inconsistency. It shows up as waiting for the right mood instead of choosing the right action. This work is about ending that pattern. As you listen, you are not here to agree. You are here to decide. Decide what stays. Decide what goes. Decide what version of you is no longer allowed to run the day. Because the moment you stop asking the world who you are and start telling it through your actions, everything changes. You do not need permission to act like your life matters. You do not need proof to move with discipline. You do not need applause to build strength. What you need is clarity. And clarity comes when you commit to an identity before the results arrive. This is the shift. From chasing outcomes to embodying standards. From reacting to directing. From waiting to moving. From hoping to becoming. Your future is not distant. It is being constructed right now through the smallest choices you make in silence. And as you move forward, understand this. Every chapter is not a concept. It is a command. Applied consistently, it rewires how you think, how you carry yourself, and how life responds to you. You are here to build something real, and it starts now. If you're ready to rise above the noise, like the video, it tells YouTube you're choosing awareness over autopilot. Subscribe now, and don't miss the next chapter in your evolution. And remember, the deepest transformation belongs to those who stay until the very end. Chapter 1. You have to start by believing that you are already enough. Not eventually. Not after you fix everything. Not after you reach a certain number, status, or milestone. Now. Because until that belief is stable inside you, nothing outside you will ever feel secure. You can chase opportunity, study strategy, and work endlessly. But if deep down you feel incomplete, undeserving, or behind, you will quietly sabotage every breakthrough that comes close. Most people don't realize how often they push success away. They hesitate when it's time to act. They second-guess when clarity is required. They shrink when expansion is needed. And it's not because they lack ability. It's because they don't believe they're allowed to take up space yet. That belief leaks into posture, tone, timing, and decisions. Life feels that hesitation and responds accordingly. When you don't feel enough, you start looking outward for confirmation. You wait for validation. You measure yourself against others. You let past mistakes define your ceiling. And the mind, when trained this way, becomes a filter that only sees lack. It remembers failures more clearly than wins. It magnifies what's missing and minimizes what's working. Over time, this creates an internal environment where growth feels unsafe. This is why so many people try to fix the outside first. They chase wealth without believing they deserve it. They chase love without respecting themselves. They chase recognition without trusting their own voice. And when nothing sticks, they assume the problem is effort, timing, or luck. Rarely do they consider identity. Rich energy begins with identity. Not arrogance, not superiority, but grounded self-recognition. The quiet certainty that you do not need to prove your worth to earn the right to move forward. When this belief is absent, the nervous system stays in a subtle state of threat. Decisions feel heavy. Action feels risky. Rest feels undeserved. But when the belief of enough is installed, the system stabilizes. You move cleaner. You choose faster. You recover quicker. Scientifically, the brain is constantly predicting outcomes based on self-image. If the self-image says, "I am behind," the brain scans for danger and rejection. If the self-image says, "I am capable," the brain scans for opportunity and solutions. Same world, different lens, and that lens determines behavior. Spiritually, without mysticism, this is alignment. When your internal narrative stops fighting your external goals, energy stops leaking. You no longer waste effort trying to become someone else. You begin refining who you already are. That is when growth accelerates. Believing you are enough does not mean you stop improving. It means improvement is no longer fueled by shame. It is fueled by respect. You don't train because you hate your body. You train because you value it. You don't work because you feel behind. You work because you are building something meaningful. The energy is completely different, and results follow energy. The strongest people are not the loudest. They are the most settled. You can see it in their eyes. They don't rush to speak. They don't scramble for attention. They don't need to dominate space to feel relevant. Their presence is calm, deliberate, and contained. That presence comes from self-trust, from knowing they belong wherever they choose to stand. This is where belief becomes practice. You begin by watching how you speak to yourself. Every internal phrase is training your nervous system. I'm not ready. I'm behind. I don't have what it takes. These are not harmless thoughts. They are instructions. Repeated long enough, they shape posture, tone, and action. Replace them deliberately. Not with fantasy, but with grounded truth. Say, I am learning. Say, I am building. Say, I respect the process I'm in. These statements calm the system. They restore agency, and agency creates momentum. Confidence does not arrive before action. Action installs confidence. But action only happens when belief removes friction. This is why you don't wait to feel different. You decide to act different, and the feeling follows. Becoming enough is not a one-time realization. It is a daily choice, especially in moments when nobody is watching, when there is no reward, when progress feels invisible. That is where identity is reinforced. That is where you either abandon yourself or stand with yourself. The wealthiest energy you can build is self-trust, and self-trust is earned through follow-through. One promise kept, one habit honored, one standard upheld when it would be easier to drop it. These moments seem small, but they compound faster than motivation ever could. You are not here to convince the world of your value. You are here to stop questioning it yourself. Once that internal debate ends, clarity returns, and clarity is power. So start here. Decide that you are already enough to begin, enough to try, enough to commit, enough to rise slowly if needed, but steadily. The moment you stop asking whether you're worthy and start acting like your life matters, the entire trajectory shifts. This is not affirmation. This is alignment. And it is the foundation everything else is built on. Chapter 2. You have to wake up and act like success is normal, not rare, not distant, not reserved for a future version of you that only exists after everything goes perfectly. Normal. Because the way you treat success determines whether it stays occasional or becomes consistent. When you see success as something fragile, something that must be earned again and again through struggle, you move with tension. And tension creates mistakes. Most people wake up already behind, not because of reality, but because of the story. They step into the moment their eyes open. The same doubts, the same distractions, the same mental noise. They check their phone before they check their direction. They react before they decide. And without realizing it, they hand control of their energy to whatever shows up first. When you act like success is normal, you flip that order. You choose your internal state before the world chooses it for you. You don't ask how the day will go. You decide how you will show up in it. That decision alone changes posture, tone, pace, and focus. You move with intention instead of urgency. You stop chasing momentum and start generating it. Success is not created by big dramatic actions. It is created by standards that don't change based on mood. When you wake up and treat progress like your default setting, you stop waiting for permission. You stop asking whether today is the right day. You already know it is. That mindset sharpens behavior. You respect your time. You reduce wasted motion. You protect your attention. From a cognitive perspective, the brain adapts to what it repeats. If every morning begins with chaos, the brain wires chaos as normal. If every morning begins with structure, the brain wires structure as safety. Safety increases focus. Focus increases execution. Execution produces results. This is not motivation. It is conditioning. When success feels normal, you don't overreact to wins or losses. You don't spike emotionally when things go well, and you don't collapse when they don't. You stay centered. And centered people move faster over time because they waste less energy reacting. Calm consistency beats emotional intensity every time. This is why mornings matter. The first hour of your day sets the operating system for everything that follows. If you begin scattered, you carry that signal forward. If you begin deliberate, you stabilize the system. You don't need an elaborate routine. You need ownership. Simple actions done with intention tell your mind, we are in control. When you act like success is normal, you stop seeing it as something outside of you. You bring it closer. You say, if this is where I'm going, then this is how I move now. You don't fake confidence. You practice discipline. You don't pretend you've arrived. You behave like someone who knows they're on the path. This shift also changes how you talk to yourself. You interrupt thoughts that say you're behind or not ready. You replace them with grounded reminders. You've handled difficulty before. You're capable of learning, and progress is built through consistency, not perfection. That internal dialogue shapes how you walk into rooms and conversations. People feel it. Life responds to it. Acting like success is normal also means you stop explaining yourself. You don't narrate your plans. You don't seek validation for your direction. You quietly handle your responsibilities. You finish what you start. You control what you consume. You don't scroll through the day hoping to feel different. You build something real. There will be mornings when resistance shows up, when comfort feels tempting, when the old version of you tries to negotiate. That is the moment where identity is reinforced. Not when it's easy, but when it's uncomfortable. You remind yourself who you are becoming, not who you've been. You move anyway. You are not chasing a future life. You are installing it through daily behavior, one decision at a time, one standard at a time. When success becomes your normal expectation, excuses lose their grip. Your standards rise. Your follow-through strengthens. You don't need the perfect plan. You need the right energy, and the right energy is created by deciding that progress is who you are now, not who you'll be later. When you wake up with that certainty, the day aligns around it. Success stops feeling like luck. It starts feeling like the natural outcome of how you live. Chapter 3. You cannot live a powerful life while holding on to habits that keep you feeling small. That is non-negotiable. Every habit you repeat is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. And if that habit leaves you feeling weaker, distracted, or disconnected from your potential, it is quietly working against everything you say you want. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they normalize behaviors that drain their strength. They wake up and repeat routines that dull their edge. They lean on distractions that waste their attention. They avoid responsibility by choosing comfort. And because these habits feel familiar, they mistake familiarity for safety. Habits that keep you small rarely feel destructive in the moment. They feel easy. They feel soothing. They feel like relief. But relief is not growth. Relief is often just avoidance wearing a comfortable mask. Over time, these patterns erode self-respect. You begin to feel out of alignment with who you know you could be. And that internal gap creates frustration, doubt, and hesitation. Your habits are not just actions. They are identity rehearsals. Every time you procrastinate, you rehearse avoidance. Every time you scroll, instead of focus, you rehearse distraction. Every time you quit something you said you would finish, you rehearse inconsistency. And the mind learns fast. It adapts to what you practice, not what you promise. If you want to rise, you have to be honest. You have to look at how you spend your time, where your attention goes, how you cope with discomfort, and ask a simple question. Does this make me stronger or smaller? Not morally, functionally. Does it build clarity or fog? Discipline or delay? Confidence or self-doubt? Small habits have a cost. An extra hour lost to distraction costs momentum. Staying in environments that disrespect your potential costs belief. Repeating self-talk that weakens you costs courage. These costs are invisible at first, but they compound. And one day you wake up tired, not because life is hard, but because your habits have been draining you quietly. Your future lives on the other side of better habits, not perfect ones, better ones. Habits that create forward pressure, habits that remind you who you are, habits that make you feel capable, focused, and proud of your effort. These are built through choice, not mood. From a neurological standpoint, habits are comfort loops. The brain seeks what it knows, even when what it knows is limiting. That's why growth feels uncomfortable. You're asking the system to leave familiar ground. But discomfort is not danger. It is expansion. And the more you tolerate it, the more your baseline shifts. Stop negotiating with the old version of you. That version was built for survival, not growth. It learned how to cope, not how to lead. It has nothing new to teach you. Every time you give in to an old habit, you reinforce an identity you are trying to outgrow. This does not mean you overhaul your life overnight. It means you start with one habit you know no longer belongs. One pattern that consistently leaves you feeling smaller. You call it out. You interrupt it. And you replace it with something that builds strength. Not because it feels good at first, but because it feels right. You will slip. That is part of the process. Strength is not built by never falling back. It is built by returning faster, by refusing to let one mistake turn into a story about who you are. You reset, you recommit, you move forward. That frustration you feel when you repeat a habit you know isn't serving you is not failure. It is awareness. It is your potential pushing back. Listen to it. Use it. Let it guide you toward better patterns instead of numbing it away. When you remove habits that keep you small, you create space. Space for clarity, space for confidence, space for momentum. You begin to walk differently, decide faster, explain less, because now your behavior matches your vision. This is how rich energy is built, not through fantasy or motivation, but through daily decisions that respect your future. In the silence of discipline, in the strength of saying no to what no longer fits. You do not owe your old habits anything. You owe yourself alignment. And alignment begins the moment you stop feeding behaviors that shrink you and start building ones that let you expand. Chapter 4. Your energy is your responsibility. No one else can manage it for you. No one else can protect it if you refuse to. And the moment you begin treating your energy like something valuable instead of something endlessly available, your life starts to change. There is nothing strong about constantly saying yes to things that drain you. There is nothing noble about being busy while slowly losing clarity, focus, and direction. Many people confuse exhaustion with effort. They think being worn down means they are committed. In reality, it often means they are misaligned. Every yes has a cost. When you say yes to something that pulls you away from your priorities, you are saying no to your own growth. You are trading future momentum for temporary approval. And over time, that trade becomes expensive. You lose peace. You lose focus. You lose the sharpness that allows you to build anything meaningful. Most people never learn this because they are afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of disappointing others. Afraid of standing alone. So, they stretch themselves thin. They absorb other people's stress. They stay in conversations that feel heavy. They commit to environments that drain them. And then they wonder why they feel tired before the day even begins. Energy is not infinite. You wake up each day with a limited supply of mental, emotional, and physical focus. How you spend it determines what you get back. If your best hours go to things that do not move your life forward, there will be nothing left for what matters most. Saying no is not rejection. It is direction. It is the act of choosing where your life is going instead of letting other people's expectations decide for you. When you set boundaries, you are not being selfish. You are being precise. You are placing your energy where it can grow instead of where it disappears. From a psychological perspective, constant overexposure to noise keeps the nervous system in a low-level state of stress. That stress clouds judgment and weakens discipline. From an energetic perspective, attention is currency. Wherever it flows, your life follows. And from a practical standpoint, focus is required to build anything real. Ask yourself better questions. Not, will they be upset if I say no? But what will it cost me if I say yes? Not will they understand, but will I respect myself if I keep doing this? These questions cut through guilt and reveal truth. Look at how you spend your time. Look at the conversations you tolerate. Look at the content you consume. Look at the environments you remain in. Do they sharpen you or scatter you? Do they support your direction or dilute it? You already know the answer. Most people do. They just avoid acting on it. Protecting your energy does not mean isolating yourself. It means choosing intentionally. It means understanding that not every invitation deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves your attention. And not every situation deserves your emotional investment. When you begin to say no to what drains you, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your decisions become clearer. Your movement becomes more deliberate. You stop reacting to everything and start responding only to what matters. That shift alone creates growth. There may be pushback. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may resist your new standards. That is not your problem. Your responsibility is not to keep everyone comfortable. Your responsibility is to build a life that feels aligned. You are allowed to step away from what exhausts you. You are allowed to choose peace over pressure. You are allowed to protect your focus without explanation. And you do not need to wait until you are burned out to do it. Most people miss progress, not because they are incapable, but because they are mentally and emotionally drained. They spend their days reacting, fixing, and absorbing, leaving no energy for creation. When you stop doing that, your progress accelerates. Every strong life is built on protected energy. Every clear path is defended by boundaries, and every meaningful goal requires space to grow. When you stop giving your best energy to the wrong things, you begin to feel lighter, sharper, and more in control. This is not coldness. This is commitment. Commitment to your future. Commitment to your clarity. Commitment to the version of you that is trying to emerge. Say no to anything that drains your energy. and say yes to the discipline, focus, and peace that allow you to rise. Chapter 5. If you want to feel unstoppable in your own life, you need a routine that supports your strength instead of draining it. Not a perfect schedule, not a rigid system designed to impress others. A routine that grounds you, focuses you, and keeps you moving forward, even on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. You cannot build momentum on randomness. Scattered effort creates scattered results. When your days lack structure, your energy leaks into decision-making, hesitation, and overthinking. You spend more time wondering what to do than actually doing it. A strong routine removes that friction. It turns action into default behavior. A routine is not about control for its own sake. It is about conservation. When your actions are already decided, your mind is free to execute instead of debate. This is where real power begins, not in doing more, but in doing what matters without resistance. Success does not come from having more time. Everyone has the same number of hours. It comes from how you treat the time you already have. A powerful routine is a declaration that your life has direction. It tells your mind, we are not drifting, we are building. Start with your mornings. The first hour of your day is the most influential because it sets the tone for everything that follows. If you begin in reaction, checking messages, absorbing noise, rushing without clarity, you train your mind to stay scattered. But if you begin with intention, you establish control early. This does not require complexity. Wake up, hydrate your body, move your body, clarify your focus, feed your mind with something real. These actions send a clear signal. You are leading the day, not reacting to it. That signal stabilizes your energy. From a neurological standpoint, routines create predictability, and predictability creates safety. When the brain feels safe, it focuses better. When it focuses better, execution improves. Over time, this creates confidence. Not emotional confidence, but functional confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. A routine should protect your priorities. It should create space for deep work, not just busyness. Being busy is not the same as being effective. Many people fill their days with activity to avoid discomfort, but progress requires focus. Your routine should reduce distraction, not accommodate it. This also means learning what to stop doing. Stop letting your phone be the first thing that shapes your thoughts. Stop filling every empty moment with stimulation. Stop saying yes to tasks that keep you occupied, but not fulfilled. A strong routine is not about adding more. It is about removing what doesn't belong. Structure creates freedom. When you know when you work, when you rest, and when you think, your mind stops spinning. You don't chase motivation. You move because movement is already part of who you are. That consistency compounds faster than intensity ever will. You do not need to copy anyone else's routine. Your routine should reflect your goals, your energy, and your season of life. What matters is not how impressive it looks, but how reliably it brings you back to center. A good routine helps you recover faster when life throws you off track. Because life will test you. There will be days when plans break, energy dips, and focus slips. A strong routine does not prevent disruption. It shortens recovery time. Instead of spiraling, you return to structure. You reset. You continue. This is how discipline becomes supportive instead of restrictive. It stops feeling like force and starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are guiding yourself. Over time, this creates something rare. Self-trust. You begin to trust your ability to show up, to finish what you start, to handle discomfort without quitting. That trust is the foundation of unstoppable energy. One solid day turns into a solid week. One focused week turns into a month. And without realizing it, your life begins to change. Not through a single breakthrough, but through repeated alignment. Build a routine that makes you proud of how you live, one that protects your focus, respects your energy, and reinforces the person you are becoming. Start small. Start now. Choose one habit that anchors your day and honor it. That is how you stop drifting. That is how you become consistent. And that is how you become unstoppable. Not by force, but by design. Chapter 7. The work you do when nobody is watching is the work that builds who you are. Not the work that gets applause. Not the effort that is seen, praised, or rewarded immediately. The real transformation happens in silence, when there is no pressure to perform, and no reward waiting at the end of the day, except your own self-respect. Anyone can give effort when there is recognition. Anyone can push when there is an audience. But strength is forged when you show up without witnesses, when the room is quiet, when there is no external consequence for quitting. That is where identity is decided. Every time you give your best in private, you reinforce a standard. You tell yourself, without words, that your life matters even when no one is paying attention. That message sinks deep. It becomes part of how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you decide. Over time, it creates a calm confidence that does not need validation to survive. Most people treat effort like it only counts when someone is keeping score. They work hard when there is a deadline, when someone is checking in, when failure would be visible. But when the pressure disappears, so does the discipline. That inconsistency is costly. It creates a gap between who you are publicly and who you are privately. And that gap drains power. Growth does not respond to external pressure. It responds to internal discipline. When you become the kind of person who works just as hard in silence as you do in the spotlight, your progress accelerates. Not because you are forcing it, but because you are aligned. From a psychological standpoint, private discipline builds self-trust. When you see yourself follow through without supervision, your brain updates its model of who you are. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to be pushed. You become someone who moves independently. That shift changes everything. From an energetic perspective, integrity strengthens signal. When your actions match your values, even in silence, there is no internal conflict, no leakage, no friction. Your energy becomes contained and directed. That containment is felt. People may not know why they trust you, but they do. Life responds to consistency. Giving your best does not mean burning yourself out. It means being honest with your effort. It means showing up fully for the task in front of you, even when it feels repetitive or unimportant. Because nothing is unimportant when it is shaping your character. Every repetition in the gym when no one is there. Every focused hour when distractions are tempting. Every early morning when comfort is calling you back to sleep. These moments build momentum beneath the surface. You may not feel it immediately, but it accumulates. This is where many people quit, not because they can't handle difficulty, but because they can't handle invisibility. They want proof before the process has had time to work. But the strongest lives are built before the proof appears. You have to stop needing someone else to witness your effort for it to matter. You have to decide that your standards apply, whether anyone is watching or not. That decision matures you. It moves you out of dependency and into ownership. When you live this way long enough, something shifts internally. You stop chasing approval. You stop waiting for encouragement. You stop needing to be seen to stay consistent. You move because movement is who you are now. And when challenges come, as they always do, you don't collapse. You've already trained in silence. You've already faced boredom, resistance, and discomfort without applause. Pressure no longer surprises you. You've been preparing quietly all along. This is how real confidence is built. Not through image, not through performance, but through repeated proof to yourself that you can be counted on, that you do what you say you will do, that you honor your commitments even when no one is checking. The world eventually notices this kind of person, not because they announce themselves, but because their presence carries weight. Reliability is rare. Integrity is magnetic. Consistency is powerful. So give your best when nobody is looking, not for recognition, not for reward, but because you are becoming someone you respect. And once you respect yourself, you no longer need the world to convince you that you matter. That is where true power begins. Chapter 10. You do not need to wait until wealth shows up in your hands to start living like it belongs to you. Because wealth does not begin as a result. It begins as a way of being, a way of thinking, choosing, moving, and carrying yourself through ordinary moments. Long before numbers change, behavior does. And behavior is the real signal life responds to. Most people live in delay. They tell themselves they will act differently once circumstances improve, once they earn more, once they feel more confident, once someone notices. But this way of living keeps them stuck in reaction. They allow the outside world to dictate their internal state. And as long as that continues, nothing truly shifts. Living like wealth already belongs to you does not mean pretending or performing. It means removing the habits of scarcity. Scarcity thinking rushes. It panics. It over-explains. It clings. Abundance thinking prepares. It organizes. It plans ahead. It respects time and energy. One repels opportunity. The other invites it. When you live as though wealth belongs to you, you stop wasting time. Not because time is scarce, but because it is valuable. You stop filling your days with distractions that numb you. You stop treating your schedule casually. You handle your hours with care because you understand they are building something. You also begin managing your energy differently. You do not give your best attention to things that bring no return. You rest intentionally. You work intentionally. You fuel your body with respect. You speak with clarity instead of desperation. These are not cosmetic changes. They are structural. From a psychological perspective, the brain adapts to the identity it is asked to support. When you act like someone who expects growth, your brain begins scanning for leverage, opportunity, and efficiency. When you act like someone waiting to be saved, your brain scans for permission and reassurance. Same brain, different instruction. Living like wealth belongs to you also changes how you handle pressure. You stop reacting emotionally to every setback. You see difficulty as part of the process, not as evidence that you are failing. You remain composed because your identity is not tied to immediate outcomes. That composure creates trust within yourself and from others. You can recognize this energy in people. They are not loud. They do not seek attention. They move with intention. They make decisions calmly. They do not beg life to work out. They prepare for it to. That preparation is visible in their environment, their habits, their communication, and their standards. Ask yourself honestly, if you truly believed wealth belonged to you, how would you treat your mornings? How would you speak to yourself? How would you manage your time? How would you tolerate distractions? The answers reveal the gap between your current behavior and your future identity. This chapter is about closing that gap, not through fantasy, but through discipline. You begin aligning your actions with the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. You clean up your space because order supports clarity. You organize your priorities because focus supports progress. You stop explaining your vision and start executing it. Scarcity says, "I'll act when I see proof." Abundance says, "I'll act because I am preparing for proof." That distinction changes everything. One waits, the other builds. One hopes, the other moves. Living this way does not make life easy. It makes it clean. You face challenges without drama. You handle uncertainty without panic. You stop negotiating with doubt. You act from decision instead of fear. Every choice becomes a message. How you dress, how you eat, how you speak, how you show up when nobody is watching. These are not small things. They are confirmations of identity, and identity determines trajectory. You do not need to have everything figured out to live this way. You only need to stop acting like you are waiting. The life you want is already responding to who you are becoming, but it will not force itself into a system that is unprepared. So live today like wealth already belongs to you, not arrogantly, intentionally. Let your behavior show life that you are ready to carry more, and when your actions stay aligned long enough, what you've been preparing for eventually arrives, not as a surprise, but as a match. Chapter 11. You must raise your standards until your life can no longer stay small, because everything you tolerate teaches life how to treat you. Your habits, your environment, your conversations, your expectations, all of it is communicating a baseline. And life always meets you at the level you consistently accept. Most people think standards are about intensity. They are not. Standards are about consistency. They are the quiet rules you live by, even when no one is watching, even when it would be easier to let things slide. Especially then. Low standards keep life predictable. High standards make growth inevitable. When standards are low, excuses feel reasonable. Chaos feels normal. Disrespect feels manageable. You adjust downward instead of correcting upward. Over time, this creates a life that feels smaller than your potential, not because you are incapable, but because you are under-challenged by your own rules. Raising your standards does not mean becoming rigid or harsh. It means becoming honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what delays you. Honest about what version of yourself you are feeding each day. When you raise standards, you stop asking, "Is this allowed?" and start asking, "Does this align?" Look at the basics of your life. How clean is your space? How consistent is your sleep? How intentional is your communication? How focused is your work? These are not trivial details. They are the infrastructure of your identity. When these basics are neglected, everything else becomes harder. From a neurological perspective, standards shape expectation. The brain adapts to what it repeatedly experiences. If disorder is tolerated, disorder becomes normal. If discipline is practiced, discipline becomes familiar. Your nervous system learns what to expect from you, and it responds accordingly. From an energetic perspective, standards create gravity. The higher your standards, the stronger your pull. People, opportunities, and outcomes align with the level of order and clarity you maintain. This is not mysticism. It is pattern recognition. Life responds to stability. Raising your standards also means ending internal negotiation. You stop bargaining with comfort. You stop making exceptions for the old version of yourself. You stop saying, "Just this once," when you know exactly where that path leads. Discipline is simply choosing the long term over the immediate. This applies to everything. What you eat, how you move your body, how you speak to yourself, how you handle your time, how you show up when you are tired. These moments define you far more than big declarations ever will. You do not need to raise every standard at once. You need to raise one and hold it. Choose one area where you know you have been settling, one behavior you keep excusing, one habit that quietly undermines your confidence, and elevate it, not dramatically, consistently. There will be resistance. Your mind will argue. Your old routines will push back. That is normal. Growth always challenges comfort, but once a higher standard is installed, going back feels wrong. Your system recalibrates. What once felt difficult becomes your new normal. This is how life changes without force, not through pressure, but through expectation. When you expect more from yourself, you behave differently. When you behave differently, results follow. Not immediately, reliably. Raising your standards is an act of self-respect. It says, "My life matters enough to be lived with intention." And when you live this way long enough, small choices begin producing large outcomes. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. So raise them, quietly, steadily, and without apology, and your life will have no choice but to follow. Chapter 12. If you do not master your attention, life will spend it for you, not maliciously, automatically. Attention is one of the most powerful resources you have, and yet most people give it away without noticing. They allow notifications, noise, and endless stimulation to decide how their mind moves, and then they wonder why they feel tired, unfocused, and behind. Attention is where your energy goes, and energy determines outcomes. When your attention is scattered, your effort becomes diluted. You may feel busy, but very little moves forward. Progress requires depth. Depth requires focus, and focus is a skill that must be trained. The modern world is designed to fracture attention. Constant updates, endless content, opinions competing for your reaction. None of this is neutral. Each interruption pulls you out of your own direction and places you into someone else's agenda. If you are not deliberate, your life becomes a series of responses instead of a creation. Most people underestimate the cost of distraction. They think a few minutes here and there do not matter, but every break in focus carries a recovery cost. It takes time for the mind to return to depth once it has been interrupted. Multiply that by dozens of small distractions a day, and you begin to see why progress feels slow, even when effort feels high. Mastering attention does not mean cutting yourself off from the world. It means deciding what deserves access to your mind. You stop allowing random inputs to dictate your internal state. You choose when to consume, when to engage, and when to disconnect. From a scientific perspective, focus strengthens neural pathways associated with problem-solving and creativity. The more you practice sustained attention, the easier it becomes. From an energetic perspective, attention concentrates power. A focused system moves forward with force. A scattered system leaks energy in every direction. You must learn to tolerate boredom. This is critical. Growth happens in moments when stimulation is absent, and your mind wants to escape. Most people reach for distraction the moment discomfort appears. In doing so, they train avoidance. When you stay present instead, you train strength. This is why deep work feels uncomfortable at first. Your nervous system is used to constant input. Silence feels unfamiliar. But if you stay with it, something shifts. Your mind settles. Your thoughts organize. Clarity emerges. That clarity is addictive in the right way. It builds momentum. Protect your focus deliberately. Set boundaries around your time. Create spaces where single tasking is the rule. Remove frictionless distractions. Make it easier to focus than to drift. These are not extreme measures. They are strategic ones. When you master your attention, you reclaim authority over your life. You stop reacting to everything. You stop being pulled off course. You begin moving with intention instead of urgency, and that is when progress accelerates. Focus is not intensity. It is consistency. It is choosing one thing and staying with it long enough for it to compound. That is how ordinary effort turns into extraordinary results. Your attention is your power. Guard it, train it, and direct it. Because whatever you focus on consistently, you become. Chapter 13. Self-trust is not something you think your way into. It is something you build through evidence. Quiet evidence. Repeated proof that when you say you will do something, you follow through. And nothing accelerates growth faster than becoming someone who trusts themselves. Most people struggle with confidence not because they lack ability, but because they lack self-trust. They have broken too many small promises to themselves. They start things and don't finish. They plan and then postpone. Over time, the mind learns not to take its own intentions seriously. And when that happens, motivation disappears. Small wins repair this, not dramatic victories. Small, deliberate completions. Drinking the water you said you would. Finishing the task you started. Showing up for the workout even when it's short. Closing the loop you've been avoiding. These actions seem insignificant, but they are powerful signals to your nervous system. Every small win tells your brain, I can rely on this person. That message calms internal resistance. It reduces hesitation. It creates momentum. The more you trust yourself, the less effort it takes to act. Discipline becomes lighter because doubt has less ground to stand on. From a neurological standpoint, follow-through strengthens pathways associated with reward and agency. Your brain begins to associate effort with completion instead of frustration. From an energetic perspective, consistency stabilizes identity. You stop leaking energy into self-criticism and start directing it into action. The key is starting small enough to succeed consistently. Most people set goals that are too large, miss them, and then reinforce disappointment. That cycle erodes confidence. Instead, set commitments that are impossible to ignore. Short, clear, non-negotiable. Then honor them. Do not underestimate the power of finishing. Completion closes energy loops. Unfinished tasks linger in the mind, creating background stress and mental noise. When you finish, even something small, clarity returns. Your system relaxes. You regain control. As these wins stack, something changes. You stop asking whether you can handle more. You already know you can. You have proof. That proof becomes your foundation. You move with certainty, not because you are fearless, but because you are practiced. There will be days when you fall short. That does not erase progress. What matters is recovery speed. Catch yourself faster. Reset sooner. Return to the standard without drama. That ability to recover is a form of self-trust, too. Confidence built this way is durable. It does not disappear when circumstances shift. It is rooted in behavior, not mood. And once it is established, life responds differently. You hesitate less. You decide faster. You stop second-guessing. Build self-trust one small win at a time. Let it compound. Because when you trust yourself, everything else becomes easier to build. Chapter 14. At some point, You have to stop chasing validation and start chasing value. Because validation is unstable. It rises and falls with other people's moods, opinions, and attention. Value is different. Value compounds. It lasts. And it gives you something validation never will. Leverage. Most people are exhausted because they are trying to be seen instead of trying to be useful. They shape their actions around how they might be perceived, rather than what they are actually building. They want approval before they have substance, and in doing so, they delay the very growth that would make approval irrelevant. When you chase validation, you become reactive. You adjust your voice to fit the room. You soften your standards to avoid discomfort. You explain yourself too much. You seek reassurance instead of results. This keeps you dependent on external feedback, and dependency weakens presence. Value does the opposite. When you focus on value, your attention moves inward, to skill, precision, contribution, and consistency. You stop asking, "Do they like this?" and start asking, "Does this work?" That shift changes how you show up. You become calmer, sharper, more grounded. Value is created quietly. It is built through competence, reliability, and depth. Through learning something well instead of skimming everything. Through finishing work instead of constantly starting new things. Through doing what matters even when it is not immediately rewarded. From a psychological perspective, value creation builds intrinsic motivation. You begin to move because the work itself feels meaningful, not because someone is watching. From an energetic perspective, value creates pull. When you consistently produce something solid, attention comes to you naturally. You no longer chase it. This is why people who create real value rarely look desperate. They do not overpromote. They do not oversell. They let results speak. Their confidence comes from capability, not from performance. And that confidence is felt. Chasing value also removes comparison. When you are focused on improving your craft, your process, your output, other people's paths become irrelevant. You stop measuring yourself against timelines that are not yours. You focus on progress instead of position. There will be moments when validation feels tempting, when you want recognition before the work is complete, when you want reassurance instead of refinement. In those moments, remember this. Validation feels good briefly, but value changes your life permanently. Every hour spent improving a skill pays dividends. Every project completed with care strengthens your foundation. Every promise kept builds trust. This is the work that compounds. Slowly at first, then all at once. When you stop chasing validation, something unexpected happens. You become harder to manipulate. You make cleaner decisions. You stop performing and start producing. And people respond differently to you. Not because you asked them to, but because your presence carries substance. You are not here to be impressive. You are here to be effective. Build value. Let validation catch up later, if it ever needs to. Chapter 15. If you can stay calm under pressure, you become unstoppable. Pressure does not destroy people. Reaction does. The moment stress appears, most people tighten, rush, or emotionally collapse. Their thinking narrows, their behavior becomes impulsive, and they lose control, not because the situation is impossible, but because they never trained themselves to remain steady inside it. Pressure is not a signal to panic. It is a signal to slow down internally, to stabilize your breath, to narrow your focus, to return to what you can control. When you do that, clarity returns, and clarity under pressure is rare. That rarity becomes power. Life will test you, not once, but repeatedly. Deadlines, uncertainty, conflict, failure, silence, waiting. These moments are unavoidable. The question is not whether pressure will come, but how you will respond when it does. Will you react emotionally or respond intentionally? Most people let pressure decide who they are. They abandon their standards the moment things get uncomfortable. They speak carelessly. They quit prematurely. They seek relief instead of resolution. And every time they do, they teach their nervous system that pressure is something to escape instead of something to manage. Staying calm is not suppressing emotion. It is regulating it. It is the ability to feel stress without letting it dictate behavior. This is a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. The more often you choose composure over chaos, the more natural composure becomes. From a physiological perspective, calm breathing and controlled movement signal safety to the brain. When the brain feels safe, it can think strategically instead of defensively. From an energetic perspective, calm contains force. It prevents energy from leaking into panic, argument, or overreaction. Contained energy is usable energy. This is why calm people often appear powerful. They are not rushed. They are not loud. They do not need to dominate the moment. Their presence slows the room down. And when others are emotional, their stability stands out. Pressure also reveals what you have practiced. If you have built discipline in quiet moments, pressure does not shock you. It feels familiar. You have already faced discomfort without drama. You have already trained when it was inconvenient. So, when life demands more, you are ready. Calm under pressure allows you to see options others miss. While others are reacting, you are observing. While others are panicking, you are deciding. That ability compounds. Over time, people begin to trust you with more responsibility, not because you ask for it, but because you can handle it. You will still feel stress. That does not disappear. What changes is your relationship to it. Stress becomes information, not a threat. It tells you where to focus, where to prepare, where to strengthen. And instead of collapsing, you adjust. This is where leadership is born, not in comfort, but in composure. Not in certainty, but in steadiness. You do not need to control the situation. You need to control yourself. Practice this daily. When something goes wrong, pause. Breathe. Choose your next move deliberately. When frustration appears, do not feed it with words or action. Let it pass. When urgency pushes you to rush, slow your internal pace instead. Over time, this becomes instinct, and when it does, pressure loses its grip on you. You move through challenges with clarity. You recover faster from setbacks. You remain aligned even when conditions are unstable. This is not just emotional strength. It is strategic advantage. Calm under pressure allows you to keep building while others burn out. And that is how momentum is sustained. Stay calm, stay centered, and let pressure reveal your strength instead of stealing it. Chapter 16. There is a specific kind of power that only comes from finishing. Not starting, not planning, not talking, finishing. Because every unfinished task leaves a trace. It occupies mental space. It drains attention. It quietly reminds you of a promise not kept. And over time, these open loops erode confidence more than failure ever could. Most people underestimate how much energy they lose by not completing things. Half-written plans, delayed decisions, avoided conversations, projects left hanging. Each one creates background noise in the mind. You may not consciously think about them, but your nervous system feels the weight. And that weight slows you down. Becoming someone who finishes is not about perfection. It is about integrity. It is about aligning your actions with your intentions. When you finish what you start, you send a clear message to yourself. I can be trusted. That message restores authority. It strengthens identity, and it changes how you move. Starting is exciting. Finishing is disciplined. Starting gives you dopamine. Finishing gives you self-respect. One feels good in the moment. The other builds a life. If you want momentum that lasts, you must train yourself to complete. Every completed task closes an energy loop. The mind relaxes. Focus sharpens. Space opens for the next level. This is not psychological theory. It is lived experience. When you clean up loose ends, clarity returns. When clarity returns, progress accelerates. From a neurological perspective, completion reinforces reward pathways associated with effort. Your brain learns that action leads somewhere. From an energetic perspective, completion creates coherence. There is no internal conflict between intention and behavior. That coherence is stabilizing. It makes you calm, grounded, decisive. Most people avoid finishing because finishing requires confrontation. Confrontation with discomfort, with imperfection, with the possibility that the result will not be ideal. But unfinished work guarantees stagnation. Completion, even imperfect, creates movement. This chapter is not asking you to do more. It is asking you to close what you have already opened. Finish the task you keep postponing. Make the decision you keep delaying. Have the conversation you keep avoiding. Clean the space you keep ignoring. These actions may seem small, but they unlock momentum. When you become someone who finishes, your life begins to trust you. Opportunities stay. Progress compounds. You stop feeling scattered. You stop doubting your capacity. You stop needing external pressure to move. Finishing also sharpens your standards. You become selective about what you start because you know you will see it through. That selectivity is power. It protects your energy. It keeps your focus clean. There will be resistance. Old habits will argue for delay. Comfort will suggest waiting. That is where this identity is forged. You finish anyway. Not dramatically, quietly, decisively. And when you live this way long enough, something changes. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling like your life is fragmented, because it is no longer fragmented. It is integrated. This is the final shift, from potential to execution, from intention to embodiment, from chaos to coherence. Become the person who finishes, and watch how quickly your life starts to move forward again. Chapter 17. At this level, the work is no longer about becoming someone new. It is about maintaining alignment when life tries to pull you off center. Because growth does not end when you improve your habits or raise your standards. Growth is tested when pressure, success, fatigue, or repetition show up and ask, will you stay who you decided to be? Most people fail here, not because they lack discipline, but because they relax it too early. They get momentum, then drift. They see progress, then loosen standards. They feel relief, then return to old patterns. And slowly, quietly, they slide backward. Not dramatically, but comfortably. This chapter is about staying sharp after the breakthrough, because the greatest threat to progress is not failure. It is complacency. When life starts working, when things feel smoother, when results begin to appear, the mind whispers, you've earned rest. You can ease up now. But ease without awareness turns into decay. Alignment is not something you reach and keep forever. It is something you maintain deliberately. Your nervous system always wants efficiency. If standards are not actively reinforced, it defaults to the lowest level that still feels acceptable. That is why people regress without noticing. Staying aligned means staying conscious. It means checking in with yourself regularly, not emotionally, but structurally. How are you sleeping? How are you speaking to yourself? How clean is your environment? How intentional are your mornings? How honest is your effort? These are not self-help questions. They are maintenance questions. Just like strength fades without training, clarity fades without structure. Just like fitness declines without movement, focus declines without boundaries. This is where mastery begins. You stop chasing change and start protecting consistency. You understand that your best life is fragile if you treat it casually. You respect the system that built your progress instead of abandoning it once results appear. From a scientific perspective, regression happens when reinforcement stops. Neural pathways weaken if behavior is not repeated. From an energetic perspective, alignment dissolves when intention fades. From a practical perspective, success collapses when discipline becomes optional. This is why the strongest people simplify as they rise. They do not add complexity. They remove distractions. They protect fewer habits, but protect them fiercely. They know exactly what keeps them sharp, and they refuse to negotiate with anything that dulls them. Staying aligned also means emotional maturity. You no longer let temporary moods dictate permanent behavior. You do not punish yourself for low-energy days. You adjust without abandoning standards. Some days you move slower, but you still move. Some days the work feels heavy, but you still show up. Consistency is not intensity. It is loyalty. Loyalty to your future self. Loyalty to the system that changed you. Loyalty to the version of you that fought to get here. This is where ego dissolves. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need recognition. You no longer need constant excitement. You value stability over stimulation, depth over novelty, alignment over adrenaline. And that is why people at this level move quietly but powerfully. They do not chase the next high. They protect their baseline. Because when your baseline is strong, everything else builds naturally. So understand this clearly. The goal is not transformation. The goal is sustainability. A life that works on ordinary days. A mindset that holds under pressure. A rhythm you can live inside without burning out. Stay aligned when no one is pushing you. Stay disciplined when no one is watching. Stay grounded when success tries to distract you. That is how progress becomes permanent. And that is how you stop cycling between growth and collapse. And finally move forward without losing yourself. Chapter 18. There comes a point where growth is no longer about effort. It becomes about identity protection, because once you have built momentum, once your standards are higher, once your direction is clear, the real challenge is not moving forward. It is not slipping back into versions of yourself you have already outgrown. This chapter is about guarding your identity, not defending it loudly, not explaining it, protecting it through behavior. The most dangerous moments are not when life is hard. They are when life feels manageable, when things are not urgent, when pressure is low, when discipline feels optional. That is when the old self looks for an opening. The old patterns do not return aggressively. They return politely. They suggest shortcuts. They suggest breaks that turn into habits. They suggest, "You're different now. You can handle this." And slowly, boundaries soften. Identity erosion never feels like failure. It feels like comfort. That is why you must understand this. Your identity is either reinforced daily or quietly diluted. Every decision you make either confirms who you are now or feeds who you used to be. There is no neutral. From a neurological perspective, identity is stabilized by repetition. The brain does not care what you believe. It cares what you practice. When behaviors stop matching identity, the old wiring reactivates. From an energetic perspective, identity is coherence. When behavior and self-image drift apart, energy leaks, clarity weakens, confidence becomes unstable. This is why protecting identity is not about motivation. It is about structure. You keep the habits that anchor you. You protect the routines that regulate you. You maintain the environments that support you, not because you are afraid of growth ending, but because you respect how easily it can be undone. Protecting identity also means choosing boredom over chaos. You stop seeking stimulation to feel alive. You stop needing novelty to feel progress. You understand that real power feels calm, not exciting. Excitement spikes and crashes. Stability compounds. At this level, you become selective. You do not engage in conversations that pull you backward. You do not entertain thoughts that weaken your standards. You do not revisit habits that once cost you clarity, not because you are rigid, but because you are aware. Awareness creates restraint. Restraint creates longevity. You also learn to decouple identity from outcome. Wins do not inflate you. Losses do not define you. Mood does not rewrite your standards. You remain steady. This steadiness is rare. Most people are only disciplined when they are afraid of losing something. Very few are disciplined because they respect what they've built. You become one of the few. You stop asking, "How far can I push?" and start asking, "How do I sustain this?" Sustainability is mastery. It means your life works without constant force. It means your discipline does not depend on pressure. It means your identity does not collapse under comfort. You are no longer proving who you are. You are protecting who you have become. And that protection is quiet. It is invisible. It shows up in what you refuse to compromise. That is how growth becomes permanent. That is how identity becomes unshakable. And that is how you stop restarting your life and finally live it forward. Chapter 19. At the highest level, discipline becomes invisible. It no longer feels like effort. It feels like who you are. This is where life stops feeling like a constant battle of willpower and starts feeling guided, steady, intentional, and self-led. This chapter is about integration, because the goal was never to live in control forever. The goal was to reach a point where control is no longer required. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it is force. They think it is restriction. They think it is something you must fight to maintain. That is only true at the beginning. At the beginning, discipline feels heavy because it is unfamiliar. You are overriding habits. You are challenging identity. You are disrupting comfort. But once alignment is practiced long enough, discipline becomes natural. You no longer debate whether to do what matters. You no longer negotiate with distraction. You no longer need motivation to move. You act. Because that is your default. This is integration. Your values are no longer ideas. They are behavior. Your standards are no longer rules. They are instincts. Your focus is no longer forced. It is protected automatically. From a neurological perspective, this is identity-level wiring. Behavior has been repeated enough that it no longer requires conscious effort. From an energetic perspective, this is flow. Not excitement, but efficiency. There is no internal resistance because there is no internal conflict. You are no longer split between who you want to be and how you live. That split is what exhausts people. When alignment is integrated, energy returns. This is why people at this level appear calm. They are not managing chaos internally. They are not suppressing urges constantly. They are not fighting themselves. They have become congruent. And congruence is power. You move through life without friction. Decisions feel clean. Boundaries feel obvious. Discipline feels light. You do not feel superior. You do not feel the need to correct others. You do not feel the urge to explain yourself. You simply live. This is also where purpose becomes embodied. You no longer ask, "What should I do with my life?" Your actions already answer that question. Purpose is not something you discover. It is something you demonstrate daily through alignment. At this level, success stops being dramatic. It becomes predictable, not guaranteed, but repeatable. Because your systems support you. Your habits stabilize you. Your identity carries you forward, even when life is quiet. You are no longer sprinting. You are moving sustainably. This is the difference between people who burn bright and burn out, and people who last. Longevity is the final form of strength. You now understand that growth does not require constant intensity. It requires faithfulness to what works. You keep the basics clean. You protect your focus. You finish what you start. You stay grounded under pressure. You maintain alignment when no one is watching. And because of that, life stops feeling unpredictable. Challenges still come, but they no longer shake you. Success still arrives, but it no longer distracts you. You are stable. This is not stagnation. This is mastery. Mastery is when progress continues without struggle. When discipline does not need force. When identity does not need defense. You have built a life that supports you. And now, instead of fighting to become someone, you live as someone. This is the final shift. From effort to embodiment. From discipline to identity. From striving to alignment. And once you reach this point, you do not need to restart. You do not need to chase. You do not need to prove. You simply continue. Chapter 20. This is where the journey closes, not because growth ends, but because seeking ends. At this level, you stop searching for the next method, the next breakthrough, the next version of yourself. You understand something most people never do. The work was never about becoming more. It was about removing what was in the way. Chapter 20 is about living without inner resistance. Because once alignment is embodied, once discipline is integrated, once identity is stable, the greatest freedom you gain is not success. It is simplicity. You no longer live in conflict with yourself. Most people are exhausted not from effort, but from internal argument. They argue with their habits. They argue with their standards. They argue with their direction. That argument drains energy. At this level, the argument is over. You know who you are. You know what you do. You know what you don't tolerate. There is no debate. This does not make life smaller. It makes it lighter. You stop carrying unnecessary mental weight. You stop replaying decisions. You stop overanalyzing direction. You act, adjust, and continue. From a scientific perspective, this is cognitive efficiency. The brain no longer wastes resources resolving internal contradiction. From an energetic perspective, this is clean signal. Nothing interfering, nothing leaking. From a philosophical perspective, this is integrity. Thought, word, and action in agreement. This is why peace emerges naturally here. Not passive peace, not avoidance, but earned peace. The kind that comes from knowing your life is aligned. You are no longer chasing clarity. Your life produces it. You are no longer trying to feel confident. Your behavior generates it. You are no longer seeking meaning. Your consistency has created it. At this level, success becomes quiet. You don't announce wins. You don't dramatize setbacks. You don't rush to define yourself by outcomes. You remain rooted. This rootedness allows you to handle expansion without losing yourself. More responsibility does not overwhelm you. More opportunity does not destabilize you. More freedom does not erode your discipline. Because discipline is no longer something you use. It is something you are. You also stop living in urgency. You understand timing. You understand patience. You understand that the life you've built does not require constant acceleration to remain meaningful. You move steadily, intentionally, without anxiety. This is where many people think life becomes boring. It doesn't. It becomes clear. And clarity feels calm, not dull. You still grow. You still expand. You still aim higher. But you do it without self-betrayal. You no longer sacrifice health for progress. You no longer sacrifice peace for speed. You no longer sacrifice identity for approval. You are done trading long-term alignment for short-term relief. This is the final state of rich energy, not hunger, not obsession, not constant striving, but stability with direction. You wake up knowing what matters. You move without forcing. You rest without guilt. You work without resistance. And because of that, life responds consistently, not dramatically, reliably. You are no longer trying to escape your life. You are living inside it fully. That is real wealth. Not excess, but sufficiency. Not chaos, but coherence. Not intensity, but longevity. This is where the path completes its circle. You began by choosing belief. You built discipline. You raised standards. You protected focus. You integrated identity. And now, you live. Not chasing, not proving, not restarting, simply continuing, aligned, grounded, and whole. Chapter 21. There is one final responsibility that remains, once alignment is stable and identity is integrated. It is not about effort. It is not about growth. It is about stewardship. Because once you have built clarity, discipline, and internal order, your life becomes an environment that either sustains that order or slowly degrades it. Nothing stays neutral. What you have built must now be maintained consciously, not through force, but through awareness. This chapter is about leading yourself long-term, not with intensity, with wisdom. At this level, you understand that regression does not happen through collapse. It happens through neglect. Neglect of rest, neglect of boundaries, neglect of reflection. You do not fall apart. You drift. That is why self-leadership never ends. You learn to notice subtle signals early. Mental fatigue before burnout. Distraction before loss of focus. Irritation before resentment. You do not wait until something breaks. You adjust when it bends. This is maturity. From a scientific perspective, systems fail when feedback is ignored. From an energetic perspective, imbalance grows when awareness fades. From a practical perspective, strong lives are sustained by regular recalibration. You begin to review your life the way an engineer reviews a system. What is working? What is leaking energy? What needs reinforcement? What no longer belongs? Not emotionally, objectively. This is not self-criticism. It is self-respect. You also learn to honor cycles. There are seasons for pushing, seasons for consolidating, seasons for resting. The mistake most people make is treating every season the same. They either push endlessly and burn out, or rest endlessly and decay. Wisdom is knowing when to apply pressure and when to release it. At this level, you stop glorifying struggle. You stop chasing intensity as proof of worth. You understand that sustainability is the highest intelligence. You build margins into your life, time margins, energy margins, emotional margins. Margins are not weakness. They are what allow systems to survive stress. You also take responsibility for influence. Whether you intend to or not, your stability affects others. Your presence sets tone. Your discipline models possibility. You do not need to teach. You do not need to persuade. You simply live clearly. And clarity is contagious. This is not about becoming a leader in title. It is about becoming anchored. Anchored people change environments without force. They do not argue. They do not perform. They do not over-explain. They remain consistent. Consistency becomes their language. At this stage, you also accept a deeper truth. Life will never be fully controlled, and it does not need to be. You stop resisting uncertainty. You stop fearing change. You trust your ability to adapt without losing alignment. That trust is earned. It comes from years of showing up, of finishing, of protecting focus, of maintaining standards. So when life shifts, you do not panic. You adjust. You recalibrate. You continue. This is the final evolution of rich energy, not control, not dominance, not obsession, but self-governance. You govern your time. You govern your attention. You govern your responses. And because of that, your life remains coherent, even as it evolves. You are no longer chasing growth. You are guiding it. That is mastery. And mastery is not loud. It is calm. It is steady. It lasts. Thank you for listening with an open mind and heart. If a certain chapter or insight resonated most with you, share it in the comments. You might help someone else find exactly what they need today. Keep this book saved so you can return to its words whenever life calls for reflection or guidance. I wish you health, peace, and wisdom in every step you take.